From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things of the week that make us go
wow.
I'm co-founder of World of Wonder, Fenton Bailey, joined by my amazing cohorts, far more articulate, funny and brilliant than moi, our Chief Creative Officer, Tom Campbell.
Hello, hello, hello.
And of course, the lovely and amazing James St. James, editor of the Wow Report.
That's me.
Okay, it's the first show of fall, Blake tells me, falling into the sere and yellow leaf. Let's kick it off at number 10.
Number 10.
It's John Waters' world, and we just live in it right now. I had the great privilege of being Randy Barbatos +1 at the Academy Museum in Los Angeles, right at Fairfax and Wilshire, for the opening night of John Waters' Pulp of Trash, a retrospective that will be there for several months. It's on the 4th floor. It is outstanding. I cannot urge you to
gush
go
on about it enough.
Exactly. I'm gushing. Someone give me a thing.
Who is John Waters?
I have to say, but he reminds me of Randy and Fenton or even of James, someone who is so singular in his queerness, in his voice, in his obsessions, that he has never really changed. He's never really veered, right of left, but the mainstream has caught up to him and his craft has continued. He's a filmmaker. He's a director. He's done all kinds of cult films that have become mainstream films that became Hairspray, one of the biggest musicals of all time, movies and Broadway shows. And it's a retrospective. I've been to the Academy Museum. I've talked about it before. And I always find it a teeny bit hard to pull off because it's about stuff, oftentimes museums and films about film. Well, they solve this. Well, first of all, there's two things. There's the exhibit itself and there's also the party. So I'll talk about the exhibit itself because I went again on Sunday. I went back. I went to the opening on Thursday and went back again on Sunday because I wanted to really soak it all in. And there is a film montage of all of his movies that some brilliant person who I should find out and credit. It's like 5 to 10 minutes long that assaults you. The first moment you walk in, you sit and you watch, and it's just all of his characters talking to each other, just clips. And you get themes of food and themes, and Divine doing speech. It's just brilliant. And if you see nothing else, you're just like, oh, I have totally been reminded of all of the genius that is John Waters. But then you go from room to room. He started in like 64 was his first film. 60,
that Mondo Trash Show or Eat Your Makeup or one of those. Yeah.
Yes, things like that. And he was obsessed with the sound of music. There's another little brilliant thing, and I'm going to skip along as I do. But there's like a trash trailer or something like up in the middle of the. It's just like a trailer park. You go in, you sit down, and John introduces it, and he introduces you to the first ever movie trailer by New Line Cinema that distributed Female Trouble. And he goes, note how they don't use one piece of film from the movie. It's all reactions of people coming out in the lobby, and with soundtrack of the movie, like you're filthy. I'm the filthiest person in the world. And then they have little ladies who goes, well, I came, like a fur coat. Well, and it's all real. I came because a friend told me about it. I thought it was delightful. Or people are going, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. And then they have like quotes from the New York Times, like if you thought porn was bad, it's brilliant. And it goes on for like 2 minutes, which I think everything we promote on Wow Presents Plus now should be done that way. We shouldn't see any of it. We should just hear it and have people going, oh my God. And then, even though I do complain sometimes about costumes, you turn a corner and brilliantly displayed in 3 separate areas in one giant room are all the costumes from the original John Waters version of Hairspray. The Tracy Turnblad cockroach dress. And you just realize what a low budget movie that was. And the brilliance of those costumes, because you walk in, you know exactly where it's like being in Disneyland, but it's from John Waters and from Baltimore, where he makes all of his films. Okay. And the last thing I'll say, so we went the Thursday, we went to the roof. Jodie Foster's there. It's every queer person.
Say, it is every, from what I've seen on social media, it is every person in Hollywood ever was there and their brother and sister.
Except for you two. Every queer person in Hollywood except for you two. And John spoke, and he's so freaking brilliant. It was on the top of the outside, on the top of the Academy, which is the Barbra Streisand Bridge, you know, with the dome. And
when you're in the Death Star, it looks like the Death Star.
Yes. And the one person who came walking down the runway, I got there a little early, who looked like $2 million, a collaborator of Mr. Waters, Pia Zadora. Pia Zadora.
Oh, Pia Zadora? Stop it! Oh my God!
James St. James was my +1. And he's like, no, I can't go. I got something else to go to. And then I was like,
Pia Zadora, that would be like seeing Sophia Loren or Elizabeth Taylor.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the House of Avalon guys were there, Simone and her posse. And we're like, over there, she was wearing, you know, she's a very tiny lady. She looks exquisite. Her hair's blonde and tousled. I hate to say her age, but it's 9 years older than me. And she's wearing like very conservative cream pumps, but they have like platforms that big and stiletto heels that big and sort of a mini skirt and jacket. She's looking $1 million. At one point, Randy was moving in on Jodie Foster. I'm like, we have to choose. And we left and we went and talked to Pia Zadora, who was delightful. And we said, we have to have you on Drag Race. And it was a magical night. I'm you know, you hear me.
That sounds amazing. I mean, Pia Zadora looks $1 million, but she's worth billions of bucks, right? She's super duper.
Well, she married that guy whose name I can't recall.
It's like Anaheim Steamroller. It's Methuselah or something like that.
He was 53. He was 53. She was 23. Of course, I've researched her thoroughly now. I knew who she was. And by the way, they were only 30 years apart, not a mortal sin. He was kind of hot. He was a multi-billionaire who knocked her off her feet. He was a billionaire in 1970s, you know, and he made her the Dubonnet girl because he owned the liquor company, the Dubonnet. So she was on commercials. That's how you got famous. It's like, you know, Pia Zadora for Dubonnet.
Unfortunately, my problem with Pia and her husband is that they bought Pickfair, the legendary house of Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and they tore it down. And I will never get over that as long as I live. You have one of the legendary homes of Hollywood, and they tore it down for McMansion.
She had a joke for us. We didn't bring that up, but she said something, and it was loud. But she said that she was either married to a man named Rick or dating a man named Rick, and they thought that they should name their house Prickfair, Pia and Rick.
That's funny.
So you know, the thing about Pia, I have to say, is like she's been the butt of jokes for most of her career, and yet she's worked with Sinatra. She's worked with the best producers.
When you start her first film was Santa Claus Meets the Martians, or
yes.
I think like that as a child actress. But then she went on to have those really wonderful albums of American standards.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
Quite the singer. She really is very talented and a lovely, lovely lady. I just brought that up about Pickfair, but
I'm sensing a Pia Zadora renaissance.
Yeah,
there's something about the fact that she's faced all, like she has before social media. She was the butt of jokes. You know what I'm saying? She whether she deserved it or didn't. I don't think anyone deserved it as much as people go in. She was the butt of jokes, but what was I gonna say?
Well, we're gonna have to cut all of this out anyway. I mean, we've gone on way too long about Pia, so.
We
have. You've gone out. You've gassed on for 9 minutes now. I'm not going to get a chance to talk.
John Waters' Boat of Trash is at the Academy Museum until next August. You have no excuse not to go to LA and see it. Number 9, James.
Number 9.
Oh my God. Last night, Fenton and I went to go see a screening of the upcoming, sure-to-be camp classic cult movie sensation, Saltburn, Emerald Fennell's new movie that is just going to take the LGBTQ world by storm. It is outrageous. outrageous. It's a creepy, crazy, super nutty, sexy thriller. It's described as a cross between Brideshead Revisited and Talented Mr. Ripley. Okay, it stars Jacob Elordi, who is so hot, so handsome, and Barry Keough, who was so fabulous in Banshees of Inisherin and should have won the Oscar last year. Barry plays a poor student going to Oxford who falls into a group of snotty, entitled, rich, bratty, students led by Jacob Elordi, who is the object of everybody's lust. And Jacob takes Barry under his wing. And as the semester ends, he says, "Why don't you come stay with my family at Saltburn, their magnificent manor house that is somewhere between Buckingham Palace and, Downton Abbey. It is just magnificent." So he goes to stay with the family, and the family is just as kooky and as eccentric as you can imagine. And what happens is Barry becomes progressively more obsessed with the family, and mostly Jacob, and it turns into this series of increasingly bizarre and disturbing sexual, not even sexual, just erotic situations that keep building and building and getting creepier and creepier and creepier. And I'm just going to tell you one. This is my my one spoiler right here. There's a scene where Jacob is masturbating in the bathtub, and he is just really getting into it and moaning and groaning, and suds are flying everywhere. And Barry is watching secretly from the door and getting increasingly more and more turned on watching this. And after Jacob finishes his job and screams and shouts and comes, he leaves the bathroom and goes to his bedroom. And Barry creeps into the bathroom and starts licking the bath water and sucking it up.
Because it's still draining out.
It's still draining, and it's full of spunk. And he's drinking the bath water. And as it starts circling the drain, he's licking the drain, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And the audience is in a state of slack-jawed horror, but they're also a little turned on because it's so, you've never seen it. When I tell you this is the 10-minute scene of licking the bathtub, it is just so bizarre. And then from there, each sexual scene gets crazier and crazier. There is gay sex, there is pansexual sex, there is queer sex, there is straight sex, there is bisexual sex. You get full frontal from Barry. You get, it's just, and the shots of Jacob, he is a star is born with Jacob Elordi. He is just the object of so much lust. And Barry Keough is, I don't know that it's Oscar bound because it's so far outside of the Academy, like the norm. But it's such a bizarre, it will be one of his signature roles forever and ever and ever.
I just want to add in that if you think the bathwater scene is extreme, there's other scenes even more extreme in it.
There's one scene that reminded me so much of Rocky Horror Picture Show when Frankenfurter keeps surprising everybody in bed, and it's like, Rocky, Frank. It's that sort of thing where it's just.
Do people ever laugh? Does it ever get that campy?
Yes.
Yes.
And
it's funny, but it is horrific, and it is jaw-dropping in its audacity of where the plot goes.
And Richard E. Grant and Rosamund Pike play the parents at this country seat in a strain of passive aggression that is so cold-blooded. It is appalling, and you gasp with horror, but you can't stop laughing. James and I were just cackling.
Yeah, Rosamund Pike definitely could be Oscar bound for Best Supporting Actress. She is absolutely amazing in it. And Richard Grant is just amazing.
So that's Saltburn. Gosh, we have to wait till Thanksgiving? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it comes out in November, but it is worth the wait. I'm going to see it again. I will definitely take everybody. Yeah.
I am at a fork in the road here as we go on to number 8 because I want to talk about John Waters and I want to talk about Saltburn. I don't know which to choose. John Waters. Okay. Number 8.
Number 8.
John Waters, I guess a few days after the Pope of Trash exhibition at the Academy, got his star on Hollywood Boulevard. And in this instance, I was Randy Barbados +1 to go to the ceremony, which is pretty much right outside the office here.
I was just saying, I didn't go, but I sat at my desk and heard the entire thing. That's how close it was. It was magical.
It was in front of Larry Edmonds' Hollywood bookstore right there,
Yes.
which is like a stone's throw from World of Wonder. But from the pictures I saw from the World of Wonder roof, it was a mob scene. I've never seen Hollywood Boulevard it looked like an old Jean Harlow opening or something.
It really was. It was a Day of the Locust type event. It was incredibly crowded. It was fantastic. And of course, John was so gracious and funny. He said, here I am closer to the gutter than ever. And very sweetly, he dedicated his star to, and he had a picture of his mum and dad, Pat and John Waters, which was just beautiful. He said he hopes that the most desperate showbiz rejects walk over me and feel some sort of respect and strength. So it was really kind of lovely. I thought it was very John Waters-esque that just before the ceremony, a Hollywood tour bus on the other block, literally the next block over, spontaneously combusted, and huge plumes of black smoke. Yes, and then the building caught fire, and so it was it was like not without its sort of real Waters-esque moments.
Yes, one block John Waters getting a star, a block over, like a major helicopter 3-alarm fire.
Yes, conflagration.
And once again, I saw a million pictures of Ricki Lake looking absolutely drop dead gorgeous.
Cockroaches up her thing. Was that Mink Stoll? Hang on. Oh, no, Ricki Lake had the amazing dress with the cockroaches on.
Yes.
And Mink Stoll,
God bless her, still around. Still, you see her in Hollywood a lot. Yes.
And photographer Greg Gorman. So,
I love Greg. Yes.
So congratulations to John Waters. I mean, really, like, as Tom said, like, he's never changed. And it's like, I was thinking about John Waters, Barbie, and Taylor Swift, all these sort of legacy brands that are suddenly enjoying like peak success and respectability, you know?
Well, I do think it's interesting, you know, like what Tom was saying, where how it seems like, you know, he was so counterculture and he was so far to the left and so, you know, outrageously bizarre. And it seems like pop culture has caught up to him, and it's taken 45, 50 years, but he is now the what mainstream gays, you know, sort of look to, and he is.
Well, you know, I'm carbon dating myself here, but my brother, who's always been an inspiration and older than me, took me to the Scala in London before I ever went to America. And he said, we're going to go to an all-night screening of John Waters films. Now, this is in the early 80s, and you could actually have so many films, it would be all night. Wow. And I remember passing out about 2 a.m. because I just couldn't. And I woke up to this winking asshole. I can't remember which film it was, but they were doing that asshole winking game. And I was like, oh my God.
And people know this, but on the two incredible occasions I got to sort of meet him and talk with him, he's a gentleman. He is erudite. He is kind. He is all these things. And he has this filthy sensibility and this sort of this lack of shame about crazy people. He loves character.
I know that before I ever got to see a John Waters film, I had a book of cult movies that would talk about Mondo Trasho and Eat Your Makeup and, you know, Pink Flamingos and all those. And so I was very much aware of him as a teenager, but it was like one of those things I couldn't wait to get to New York to see the movies. And then he came out with a book called Bad Taste. I don't know if you remember this. In like 1981. And that was like my text. I carried that with me everywhere all through high school. That was just something that meant so much to me. He's just something who really helped shape who I am. You know, he's just one of those magnificent.
Yes, he was a beacon at a dark time, really, for queers like us. So congratulations, John Waters, and many more years to come. He a very spry at 77, you know, knelt down and got up unassisted, you know.
I don't think I can do that.
No.
Right.
I know.
All right, let's move on. Blake, have you got a question for us?
Blake, can I interrupt? Can I steal your question?
Please do.
I'm just gonna because I don't know if people were listening earlier, but I was interrupted about Pia Zadora, who I was only gonna say that Pia Zadora has been the butt of so many jokes, and yet she's still here and she's still beautiful. And to that, just her very existence gives me hope, and I feel is a projection of grace. So I will say with love, who the Golden Raspberry recognize are the awards that come out at the same time as the Oscars, and they recognize the worst in film. Who did Pia Zadora lose Worst Actress of the Century to in 1999? Who did Pia Zadora lose to? Which actress is the Worst Actress of the Century?
Oh, that's good.
That is really good. We'll have the answer for you right after the break here on the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake. We're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. But before we carry on the countdown, Tom, you had a question for us.
I did. Saw Pia Zadora at the John Waters opening. Love her. Spoke to her. Truly think she's a goddess. James said she's like sing Sophia Loren. She's such a rare sighting. But I got into a Wikipedia hole, and the Golden Raspberries celebrate the worst in film accomplishment. Which actress did Pia Zadora lose to? She was nominated, but she lost to this actress for Worst Actress of the Century in 1999. If you know, hold on, Blake.
I don't know. I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
I want to guess Madonna.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
I want to guess who played Nomi in Showgirls.
Oh, Elizabeth
Oh,
Berkley.
that's another good one. I was going to say Tanya Roberts.
Oh, God rest. The correct answer, unfortunately, none of you. Oh, it was Madonna.
Yeah.
So once again, Pia Zadora always compared to the best in the business. Pia Zadora, Madonna, side by side.
Let's carry on with the countdown. Tom, number 7.
Number 7.
Well, we talk a lot about fashion on our show, and I know James usually takes the fashion stories, but I thought, it's time for me to reinvent myself. So I want to talk about the U.S. Senate has relaxed its dress code.
Can you wear a tan suit now? Question mark.
Not that far.
Show
But
your shoulders.
Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, that wonderful man who's been through so much, who, he wears shorts and a hoodie, period. We know people like that. And so he sort of like tiptoes in, he votes from the door. And so they did a whole thing. And Chuck Schumer, they erased the dress code for men. And the Republicans, of course, are having a field day. George Santos, he said that he's so messy. And then the wonderful Senator Fetterman said, I dress like you campaign. Oh, sloppy.
Now, but the thing is here, because it's a bit of a double standard, because you have Lauren Boebert dressing like a hoochie mama. You have Kristen Sinema in her pink wig and alien Star Trek outfits. I mean, you have all these people who on the other side who are not fashion plates themselves. And on the one hand, I understand that there should be decorum, and I believe that there should be sort of a standard, and you dress for the job that you have, or the job that and if you start dumbing down things like that, if you start dressing sloppy, then it's a slippery slope, and who knows where you'll end up. But on the other hand, if you do your job and you do it well, then who gives a fuck what you wear?
It's a sign of the times in a weird way, right? We're all coming off of COVID. Everyone except for Fenton, who still has his striped shirt thing going, and I support it. I haven't changed either before or after. But, people dress more casually. Women have always, in general, been able to express themselves. Part of the male, that we heard a thing in NPR about how, like, the older gentlemen, like our President Biden, they know how to wear a suit. It's tailored. It looks good. A lot of the younger people in Congress don't know how, so they just kind of have big old bouncy suits on. But it'll be interesting to see. You remember when all the women wore white to one of the State of the Unions, all of the representatives? Like, Will the red and blue turn red and blue? I don't know. Like what's gonna happen?
I think one thing that you do see happening on the right with the Republicans is the Trumpification of the way men dress. You know how Trump is always in those Men's Warehouse cheap suits that are ill-fitting. They're too big for him. He has that long red tie that extends below his knees. Like, it's so disgusting and so cheap looking, but you start to see every other Republican wearing long red ties and boxy, ill-fitting suits. So it's like they're all starting to wear orange makeup and whooshing their hair. It's like it's this weird sort of cult where everybody wants to look like Trump, and it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who always disappoints us at crucial votes, that she might just wear a bikini.
I would love that. I think that would be hysterical.
Anyway, they have more important things. This is what they vote and pass when they have so many other important things to do. But
yeah, they vote. They don't vote to shut or to keep the government running. They vote to shut it down. But this is the important thing. Yeah.
But maybe now filibusters will have a theme. Like category is, floral eleganza.
All right. You can read more at worldofwonder.net/Radio Andy. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Well, I watched over the weekend a movie called Theater Camp. I don't know if you heard about it. It sort of came and went in the theaters.
I want to see it. Should I?
Well, it's a mockumentary in the style of like Christopher Guest. It has this sort of like reoccurring group of people that you're starting to see in the same movies over and over again. That Io Edebiri, so good in Bottoms.
Yes.
She's in it. She's absolutely fantastic. Noah Galvin, who we've loved for a long time. I think he's on Drag Race. Ben Platt, Amy Sedaris. It's a busload of spunky little theater kids singing their hearts out. The plot is an eccentric staff of a rundown theater camp in the Adirondacks must band together with the founders broy sort of son, and they have to keep the camp afloat. And it sort of all builds up to this wonderful half-hour finale numbers of these kids just, tap dancing and singing and acting their little hearts out. And they are so good. The kids are absolutely amazing. I don't know that I can absolutely recommend it. It's a little strange. Blake, you saw it and you hated it.
Oh, hated.
I would expect nothing less of you because you hate all things. If you like theater camp, if you like, drama kids, then it's fine. If you like singing and dancing, it's fine. Blake hates all of those things. He is just a hater. So I get it. But Tom, I think you will enjoy it. Tom,
I was going to say, it sounds like Blake wouldn't lick the bathwater of this movie, which is going to be the new way to say if you like something or not. Like,
I would like that.
Water lickable?
I would get my straw.
Spit it out. The way you described it made me a little excited, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do think that it has its moments that are absolute brilliance. Amy Sedaris is absolutely hysterical in everything she does. Ben Platt is so good, and like I said, it builds towards. It starts off with all the kids singing and auditioning, and that's wonderful because those kids are they just break your heart. And then it ends with this just spectacular series of songs and dances that are just brilliant.
I heard tangentially, on the radio today that the representation of LGBTQ plus characters has increased greatly this year. And one of the reasons is they're taking streaming projects into consideration for the first time. And they said, but with all of that, and they mentioned the movie Bros. They said only one movie, Bros, had a Black trans woman in a leading part.
Oh, yeah,
and that is Miss T.S. Madison.
Yeah.
Who has a new show? T.S. Madison ate that on Wow Presents Plus, and guess who guest stars this week?
You.
Me.
Oh my God.
Congratulations. WowPresentsPlus.com. Sign up if you're not already subscribed. All right, so that's Theater Camp streaming on Hulu. Number 5. I have been thinking about this because Saltburn. Yes, I went with James last night. I think we drove home in a kind of stunned silence Like, we had to literally flee the theater because there was a Q&A, and we were like, no. We were just sort of in a state of shock. And I have to say, I got home, I drank House of Love tangerine margarita cocktail. I was like, I need something.
Out of the tub.
Honey, I would have. Because I don't want to give things away, but to tell you the truth, I was kind of triggered by the movie. In the sense,
well, I'll tell you something, because I looked over a number of times, and you were just you weren't slack jawed, you were clenched jaws, and you were hanging on to dear life to the sides of the the armrests, and you looked like you were about ready to leave your body, like you were you were having an out of body experience.
Because it begins, the very first shot is the camera pans up over the Bodleian Library, and there's the Radcliffe camera in the center. And he's walking through students to Brasenose College. Now, I went to Oxford. I didn't go to Brasenose. I went to Lincoln, which backs on to Brasenose. But I was like, oh my God, it's back in the 80s. And I was just, and James was like, which college is that? And I was like, freaking out.
Well, because you were triggered because I imagine that you were a little bit of the Barry Keough character.
Oh,
I was just assuming that Fenton was the super sexy one.
I was Johnny No Mates, not to give too much away. But and that scene in the dining hall, I mean, that was my first dinner. The first night, it was like
he's walking through the dining hall, and he's trying to find a place to sit, and nobody will let him sit there.
Right.
And he ends up sitting with this just creepy, crazy.
I literally got a rash and broke out in hives. But the interesting thing about this Saltburn is, I mean, in a way, this is a genre. You know, we've had Brideshead. We've had, the one that was, when I was at Oxford, that they made was a movie called Privilege with Hugh Grant in it. It was his first role. So this sort of dreaming spy, we know the tropes, but this one is much more euphoricized. You know, they're doing a lot more drugs, having a lot more sex. And yet it's the same old snobbery, you know, it's the same old kind of longing for a dream.
I mean, going back to like Morris, you know, I mean, it's sort of.
Yes, another Hugh Grant. Yes, the sort of longing and the sort of aspirational fever dream of country houses and dressing in black tie for dinner. And the reason I felt triggered is because when I was at school, you know, as a little queer boy being beaten up and bullied, like if I could get to Oxford or Cambridge, that would be the ultimate fuck you, you know? So I worked really hard, and I'm not here to say I got in under my own merits. I know that I had oodles of privilege, like just literally propelling me in that direction. But when I got there, it was not like any of these
you've just entered into a whole other level of snobbery and bullying. You know?
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's true. There's a one brilliant scene where they're throwing a birthday party for the Barry character. It's the birthday party is Midsummer's Night. Midsummer's Night's what is it?
Dream. The category is
Dream. And they say should we invite 100 people or 200 people? And they're like, well, 200 people. It invariably turns into 3. Well, they invite all these people, and everybody's dressed, and everybody's doing drugs, and at one point they all start singing "Happy Birthday" to him, and they're saying "Happy Birthday, dear." And not one person knows his name. And there's just complete silence as he just wants the earth to swallow him up. He's so mortified.
Yes. But I exactly, yes. And yet everybody is in headlong pursuit of this sort of fantasy England that just, and, you know, and the funny thing about being at Oxford was, you know, I saw Hugh Grant waltz off from undergraduate life into this mythical reality. So I guess the portal opens for one or two people. And the rest of us Barrys have to get on with murdering wealthy people. Not to give too much away. But anyway, so j'accuse Saltburn of perpetuating a myth, but I'll probably jack off to it nonetheless.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a break. How about that? I think that's a good idea. Wow Presents Plus, you want to subscribe now because Drag Race UK, September 28th. Drag Race Italia, Season 3, October 13th. Drag Race Germany, Drag Race Philippines, Drag Race Brazil. I mean, my God, it's a Drag
And Blake on I Ate That with T.S. Madison.
T.S. Madison ate that.
I love that. All right, Blake, have you got a question?
I sure do. And this one is a doozy. What state in the USA do Norwegians use to describe something that's completely crazy or out of control? Like, this party is so blank.
Like, so Iowa or something? Okay, okay.
We'll have the answer for you right here on the Wow Report after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake, and a fabulous question, Blake.
Yes, I asked, what state in the USA do Norwegians use to describe something that's completely crazy or out of control? Like, this party is so Iowa.
It's got to be Florida. It's got to be Florida.
Oh, Florida. Maybe I was going to say Rhode Island, but I have a feeling you're probably right about Florida or maybe Nevada. I don't know.
Fenton?
Well, if we're in the UK, I'd say Saltburn.
It's Texas. I think because everything's bigger in Texas. It's crazy, you know.
It's good.
Yeah.
You know, the big kind of scare now in the UK is these XL bully dogs. Speaking of big American things, have you heard about XL bully dogs?
What are those?
XL bullies. They're like more vicious, bigger, meaner versions of pit bulls. They're like XL bullies. Anyway, we're counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. We've reached number 4. Tom.
Number 4.
20 controversies this week. 20 people throwing themselves, not here to judge, but I've been reading a lot about I want to say Jann Wenner, but it's Jann Wenner, the former publisher of and originator of Rolling Stone, who said in a New York Times interview, which it's on tape, he misspoke. He also probably spoke his feelings. And he said he's done a book where with the exception, he did a new Bruce Springsteen interview, but then published a book called Masters with Bono and John Lennon, old interviews, white artists after white male artists after white male artists. And the reporter said to him, why didn't you include women? Why didn't you include black artists? Stevie Nicks, Stevie Wonder. And he, on 2 occasions, again, this is just one conversation.
I don't want you to. I don't want you to.
I know.
I don't want you to apologize for it.
No, because you're right. Thank you. But he was like, I don't know that women and men, and he said, have enough intellectual kind of.
No. He didn't say men. He said black people. He said women and black people do not have the intellectual capacity to have these conversations,
to talk about rock. Now, first of all, and Mick Jagger is a big, these are all, Mick Jagger's a friend of his, Bob Dylan's a friend of his. And it gets off about it started off with is journalism or can it be friendly journalism? Because I guess he let John Lennon edit his piece that he had written years and years ago, which quite frankly, I believe there are 2 kinds of journalism. There's fluffy journalism, whatever. But Jann is such a pompous ass.
Yes, because I read the article, and I don't want to. Started to read the article, Tom, before anything. I just was reading the article, and I just got so bored. I was like, this guy is just So anyway,
no, but that's exactly it. That's the takeaway, and you realize that this guy who only wants to talk to his friends, who only wants to talk to his white friends, whose friends are white and male and famous, just doesn't seem to care. He said at one point, I guess I could have interviewed, to be safe, I could have interviewed 1 black person and 1 woman, which is honest. But, and the thing that's happened is it's just, at least he's exposing himself, right? And this mentality, which exists deep in our society, and it exists in the roots of rock and roll. And so many black groups have come out and said, rock and roll was created by
as
black.
you have this wonderful new documentary about Little Richard that shows that the roots are most definitely in blues and
that he has no clue that's happening. At one point during the taped interview that you can listen to in the New York Times, a helicopter goes overhead. And so I can only imagine he's like in the Hamptons and he's like, oh my gosh, it's like Vietnam around here. So, it's just like diggity, 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 diggity. It's just like, just complete. And there was a moment where Gayle King was on the news this morning and she said, Gayle King is on billionaires' yachts every other weekend. She's like hobnobbing with the enemy. And she goes, and she was shocked by it and she didn't let him off the hook. She goes, but she did say, just knowing Jann, it's just like, I can't believe he really believes that. It's like, I think he does.
Okay. The thing is that I understand is to Jan's point, and I'm not letting him off the hook or anything like that. But if you're friends with Bob Dylan and John Lennon and Mick Jagger, and you've interviewed them, and you want to make a book about these legendary men, and you have these interviews with them, that's fine. But then when you're called out on the fact that these are just white men, and then to go to the place that he went is.
But that's the Pompous. Like he's so afraid of any criticism. He's so afraid of looking at his career in context, which wasn't what this book was about, clearly. But when asked about it, and when he said the things he said, the reporter was like, "Whoa, I'm going to give you a chance to restate that," and he just sort of dug himself deeper and deeper. The thing that happened is that there was immediately a conference call that he was part of because he's one of the founders and on the board of the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And everyone voted him off except it was 2 dissenting votes. It was him and Bruce Springsteen's manager, who's been friends with forever. And that sort of speaks to and opens up the can of worms of like, why did it take, 40 years for Linda Ronstadt to get in? Because she didn't write around, there's always been this kind of, and again, if nothing else, I'm not trying to go down on him. I'm not.
Who has been, all these people who just, Pat Benatar, they all deserve to be in there.
And Missy Elliott, they're making corrections. Rolling Stones run by different people. They have made corrections, but it speaks to the darkness of racism in our country and how it permeated rock and roll. Let's not forget MTV. It took 3 years. And rock was white and male, quote unquote, supposedly, and it's not.
Right? I mean,
I think there's a way to talk about these things and talk about the issues and not just he's a monster. Because I'm not on the monster train right now, but I'm not supporting him.
But I'm not on the apology train either, or letting someone.
I agree. Same thing. But I'm talking about the issues, and it speaks to this hidden. It exposed this underlying racism and this old school thought of what is rock and roll.
Racism and misogyny, that exists in rock and roll. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on to number 3, James.
Number 3.
Rest in peace, soap star Billy Miller, who passed away this week at the young age of 43. Billy was absolutely adorable, just a golden retriever of a man, just blonde hair, blue-eyed, dimples, a smile that would melt, a housewife's heart. He was so good. He was in Young and the Restless. He was in As the World Turns, All My Children, and General Hospital. And I watched him on General Hospital. He came in replacing another actor in the role. And that's always hard to do because the audience is dead set against you from the beginning. He played the role of the mafia hitman with a heart of gold, Jason Morgan, who was played by another actor, and then the actor left and he took over. And he did such a good job and ended up being so beloved on the show and doing such a great job with the character that the other actor decided he wanted his role back. And so they brought him back. And so they decided to make Billy the twin brother who had amnesia. And somebody had implanted a microchip in his brain with his brother's memories. So he thought he was his brother. And so you had these 2 characters running around thinking they were the same person, and that didn't go over well with the audience. It was a bit too nutty, even for General Hospital, and the writers sort of lost interest in the character, and he sort of faded away. And it was a big shame because Billy Miller was absolutely spectacular in the role. And then his mother, since then, he'd apparently been dealing with manic depression and bipolar disease. And his mother came out with a statement saying he fought long and hard with his bipolar depression for years. He did everything he could to control it. He loves his families, his friends, and his fans, but in the end, the disease won and he surrendered his life. And it's just very sad because he was, I mean, like I said, just a beautiful, beautiful man and such a great actor, and he will be missed. So rest in peace, Billy Miller.
You know, if you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health, you can call or text 988, and the Lifeline provides 24-hour confidential support to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress. So you can call or text 988 and connect with a trained crisis counselor.
Yeah.
Oh, number two.
Number 2.
Boebert. And I'm not on the monster train, but
She's a good one.
the time has come to you to lip sync for your lies, Lauren Boebert.
She's in the hypocrite lane. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Big old hypocrite.
Oh my God, she is speeding in the hypocrite lane.
Yes.
She representative for a Republican representative for Colorado, the 3rd district. Is infamous for many things, but you know, take your children to church, not drag shows. Well, so she goes to see Beetlejuice, the theatrical production of Beetlejuice. And first, she starts taking photographs, taking selfies with a flash. She is asked not to, and she continues to. Then she's singing along. And again, people in the audience complain. She turns around and calls them sad people. Then she starts vaping and later tries to argue that it was a fog machine.
She's vaping in the face of a pregnant woman who says, please don't do that. And she's like, sorry, no, I'm not going to stop.
Then her date starts groping her boob in the most... just groping her boob, and then she starts groping his dick. And finally...
On camera! We see this on camera.
Yes, there's no ambiguity. It's all on tape. And then she's asked to leave, and they insist that she leaves, and it's just like, don't you know who I am? She gives the finger to the ushers in the theater. She's baring her teeth. Then, after telling a whole heap of lies about what happened, she then blames the fact that she's getting divorced and asks for privacy. And then it comes out that the person she was with, she's dating, and very possibly was dating while, contrary to what she says, she was still married.
Well, not only that, but
then it turns out that her date owns a bar that puts on drag shows.
The best part of the story. It's the only salvation part.
And then she dumps him, saying that in future she's going to Google her dates and check them out, their political affiliations.
Yeah, because he was a Democrat who owned this bar, and that was the problem of the evening. Was that that was the big takeaway for her.
I just lie on top of lie on top of lie, hypocrisy, brazenly sexualized behavior. The very thing that she
family values Republican.
Right. I am speechless. I can't. I just
such
can't.
an embarrassment. Such an
embarrassment. Find words. And I guess, you know, it's not that she's a monster. She's just a fool and a bigot and a just
And, you know, she won her district by less than 500 votes, which means, and she acts like she has this mandate to just steamroll over everybody in the country because she's so, you know, she's a winner, and she's, you know, she just drives me bananas, just bananas.
I didn't want to give her any publicity or that whole, you know, Third Reich thing, but it was just so flabbergasted. It was like you couldn't make it up.
No, and the video is hard not to watch and rewatch. Because you're like, did she really put her? Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She went there.
And I mean, who among us has not groped a date at a theater at one point or another?
Not like that. By the way, he looks like boobs are new to him. He was just like dialing them. Like it was just a weird. I don't know. It's just weird.
It feels like this is a good moment to take a break and to say that drag performers in the LGBTQ plus community are facing threats across the country. And that's why World of Wonder, RuPaul's Drag Race, and MTV are proud to donate to the Drag Defense Fund to support the ACLU's work to fight for the protection of our rights and to fight these bigots. My gosh. You can learn more and donate at aclu.org/dragdefense. We'll take one more break, right? And then when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go, wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. We've been counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go, wow. And we've reached number one.
Number one.
Earlier in this show, Fenton, you mentioned American icons like John Waters, Barbie, and Taylor Swift. Well, I'll add one to that, and that is Vanna White. And I am excited to report and yell from the rooftops that she has signed a 2-year contract, 2 more years for A Wheel of Fortune. So she'll be on Pat Sajak's last season, 41, which is just starting. And then she'll be on the first season with Ryan Seacrest. And she got a raise. Poor girl has been working for 20 years on $3 million a year. Now, granted,
it's sad. It's tragic. How does she do it? How does she do it?
And she wears a different gown every time we see her. You know that it's not free. But after taxes, that's not a lot of money. Although I did learn when she was on Drag Race that I think they film on Wheel of Fortune like a month of shows in 2 days.
Yeah,
so that's the gig we need to get you guys.
Well, they do that with
Family Feud and Judge Judy and
yeah. And
but there are people who need more in this world than Vanna White, but it's still somehow satisfying that Vanna, who's been doing her job,
especially because Pat Sajak made substantially more than she did, and she said she wouldn't come back unless she was able to match Pat's salary, because it just wasn't fair.
And she deserves it more than he does.
I'll tell you talk because she's in heels, turning those letters, and those letters are they don't turn anymore. They just light up.
They might even add a new letter.
You still have to stretch. You still have to do your stretching exercises.
Yes. Pat's daughter is still going to stay on as the social media girl on like Fan Fridays or something, but whatever.
Well, I mean, no one would have probably batted an eye if Pat Sajak gained 100 pounds. But she had to keep her figure that whole time. That's not for nothing.
Again, Vanna is also an author. She is the author of Afghans All Through the House.
You love
and Vanna Speaks, I think, is one of her things as well.
I have a book here that I was going to pull out, but I can't find it right.
But she, once again, saluting the singular talents. Somebody who's done the same thing for 40 years and done it well and become an American icon.
There you go.
She has one job, and she's done it brilliantly all these years.
Yes. Tom, thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. And thank you all for listening. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.